You don't get to be the king of pop by accident. Come on! Our guest this week, Aaron Walton, spent 18 months on the road with Michael Jackson.
What I learned from Michael Jackson, here's a man who understands precision.
Listen here to how Michael approaches his craft. I'm off to Milan to cheer on Team USA. Jack, by the time this one airs, I will be on a plane on the way to Milan for the Olympics.
Going to the Olympics. I am so excited for you, Tim. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to take my son. He was a hockey stud in high school. We will be at that USA men's game against Latvia on Thursday, women's quarterfinals Friday. So it'll be fun to certainly be there and me get to expose him to it.
It's a legendary Olympics in so many different ways. What a sports week. Wow. Big week for sports.
Here's what I thought is really, really interesting. Lead Human is about the person, not the machine. But the technology here, the tech leap that the Olympics at NBCU and all the broadcast partners around the world have leaned into is pretty amazing. I mean, they call it now a streaming first games. 6,500 hours of live Olympic coverage back to the US via NBC and Peacock and the Versant cable networks. There's a gold zone, like red zone for the NFL. There's a gold zone that whips around everything going on and takes you right to that medal outcome area. There's a whole search engine called Oli that gives you all the scores, updates, medal count, anything you want, AI voice-enabled response. It's amazing, as I'm calling it, a tech leap. But I'm making that point to juxtapose it to the greatest upset in the history of sports.
I know where you're going.
At least Americans would say, which was what?
Well, it was United States over Russia in hockey in a semifinal game. What year was it? 1980?
1980 in Lake Placid. That game, not everyone listening was around for it or remembers it, but that game was broadcast tape delayed back to the States.
Tape delayed, and we had no choice. That was the only way to watch. It was tape delayed.
We had no way to get the information.
But people didn't know. Did they even let you know was there any way? There was no internet to get the scores, so no one knew what the outcome was.
Late afternoon on a Friday, doesn't air till prime time. We don't know. How amazing is that? Okay?
That is an amazing reality, Tim. Good point. Good point you're making. What a change. What a difference.
How about this one? The highest rated moment in the history of the Olympics. Do you know what that is?
No, I would guess gymnastics, but I think you're going to tell me something else.
The answer is 1994 Lillehammer, Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding, and the controversy.
Oh my God. Before she took the hammer to Nancy Kerrigan's legs.
After her guys did. After her guys did.
Right.
That was in the trial.
God. What a story. I forgot about that story.
Right.
What a story that was.
That little thing was in the trials in Minneapolis. Then a couple weeks later, they both go. They're both still going. And that moment at the end of the skating, the last 15 minutes on that also was a Friday. Tanya Harding finished 6th. Nancy Kerrigan finished 2nd. Oksana Bayol of the Ukraine won. That whole thing was also tape delayed. We did not know the outcome, but the whole country, like a Super Bowl, was watching. I say like a Super Bowl because it was the 6th highest rated quarter hour in the history of television. And that was tape delayed. Entertainment, you could say, sure, Roots, the MASH finale, fine. But that's when they put it on. We had no other choice. It wasn't information.
Tim, what's interesting about the story, and it's amazing that you have these facts, but what's amazing is such a large percentage of our audience, our younger audience,
right,
have no context for the idea of tape delay. Because we live in an on-demand, minute-by-minute, second-by-second, real-time experience. No such thing as tape delaying the outcome of a sport because everyone will already know the results.
Right. Everything has just changed. It's not only on demand. Give me a Give me a technology that just takes me to something that's where a medal's about to be given out. I just want that. I mean, it's just crazy where the technology has gone. And I just thought it was fun to bring that up because while a lot of people are fans of the Olympics, you're in the middle of it right now, but a lot of people didn't know that little historical context. And it does talk about some of the good aspects of tech. So I wanted to just talk about that for a couple of reasons. So thanks for begrudging me with that. All right, let's kick off the show and welcome everybody. Greetings, humans. Welcome to Lead Human. I'm Tim Spengler with my co-host, the author and futurist, Mr. Jack Myers. And our goal every week in about 30 minutes or so is to profile the leaders of the industry who are leading in a way that truly embodies Lead Human, that even though there's so much about technology and data dashboards that do matter, but the real competitive advantage in business is still a human one and the ability to unleash the human potential. So welcome to Lead Human. Jack, tell us about our guest today.
Our guest today, Aaron Walton, happens to be in a partnership in his agency, Walton Isaacson, with Irvin Magic Johnson.
Yep.
And together they built the agency really to focus on voices, perspective, and ideas that they felt had been left on the margin. And what's been interesting, I met Aaron a few years ago when he was inducted. He and Walton Isaacson were inducted into the Advancing Diversity Hall of Honors. And what I realize I share with most people who meet Aaron is once you meet him, you want to be his friend. You want to be a friend. He's the type of person who you just gravitate toward, and you feel a warmth, a human warmth that just emanates from him. And it's so appropriate that he's joining us as a guest on Lead Human because his work really embodies the heart and soul of what it means to lead with humanity in an industry that's built on stories and connections. Tim, I'm excited that Aaron Walton's joining us today. So Aaron, it's really good to have you with us. And with that, I'm going to ask Tim to ask our first question.
Aaron, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you.
All
right, so first question is kind of a grounding question we like to ask everybody. And it's not about what you do, but about who you are. You know the name of our show. And so as a human being, tell us who you are and what it's like to be you.
Who am I? That's a great question. I think of myself as being someone who is pretty compassionate, wants to see great people succeed and do what I can to help elevate them, because I really believe that rising tides lift all boats. And so part of what I hope to do and with remaining of my career, which I have no plans of retiring anytime soon, is to continue to elevate and to teach, to learn from different people and do what I can to really help people achieve their goals. And sometimes that's a client, sometimes it's a team member, sometimes it's friends. My parents were very focused on giving back and leaning in, and I think that's something that has always been a part of who I am and my style and what I like to think about when I look back and judge whether or not I've done the right thing. It's usually about whether or not I've been able to help someone else achieve their goals. So I think that's probably how I would describe who I am.
Okay. All right. So let's start there. And we'll jump off to ask this. So you've had an agency for about 20 years and you've had an unbelievable career, which I know we'll get into, but I want to, since we're really trying to focus on the leadership aspect. And so there are things, that everyone can take away and learn from your incredible knowledge. So you founded it 20 years ago So what are the key things to being a leader?
And talk about generational shifts. and how you envision the changes that, as a leader, you need to be able to recognize to manage different generations, and especially as we see Gen Alpha coming into the marketplace.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really interesting. Reminds me of a story. I have one client, and we were talking about developing specific culturally relevant programming and advertising. And the client said to me, well, Aaron, we're colorblind here. And I stopped him and I said, well, when is being blind a good thing? Actually, the very generation of millennials, Gen Z, and now Alpha, they see color. They celebrate it. They can't understand anyone who doesn't. And so for me, when I think of the need to target some of these younger consumers, they are not going to tolerate businesses or brands that aren't celebrating who they are, but also who their friends are and who their families are. My mom, she was 82, she just passed away, but she was very focused on making sure that she would not support brands that were not supporting the LGBTQ plus community. So it's not just, younger generations, it's also people who are very in tune to wanting to see equity for everybody, particularly equity within their own families. Um, so I'm kind of bullish on the fact that these brands, if they want to survive and thrive, they're going to have to adopt a more open, inclusive effort to not only be consumer facing, but also internally within the B2B context, because there are people whom work for these folks who may be different, and you have to recognize their differences, celebrate them, if you want them to deliver the types of ideas, work, support within the organization that we all as leaders want to have happen.
That's great. So, Aaron, your background, I mean, is as broad in terms of knowledge and influence. I mean, sports, fashion, entertainment, the CEOs of the Fortune 50 companies. Amazing. If anyone does any homework on you, 18 months with Michael Jackson on the road. Magic Johnson is one of your business partners. David Bowie, you walked the runways before. I mean, unbelievable. I would love to know of all of these people that we feel like we kind of know a little bit, David Bowie, Magic Johnson, Michael, Jackson, etc. Who taught you the most? And you could even do what they taught me not to do, but maybe start with, what did you learn from, what were some of the unbelievable kernels that you just, and tell the story, because you're so good at telling the stories. Tell us the story of what you learned and when you learned it.
Listen, everyone is very different. So the things that I've learned from each of them have kind of added up to help me, I think, be a better leader. What I learned from Michael Jackson when I first was moved from New York to LA to manage that relationship, I literally went straight to Universal, which is where he was rehearsing. And I watched him for over an hour and a half rehearse Billie Jean and the movement of his hat during the choreography, and how he was working with the lighting. Nope, the lighting's not right here. It's got to hit here. Oh, the band, the downbeat has to be here. And I just watched and watched and watched and watched him just do this without blinking. And I thought to myself, here's a man who understands precision, who understands getting it right, rehearsing, getting it right, working through it, getting it. And so that is something that I learned very much from Michael. Magic has been an amazing person to watch how he gives back to the communities that he serves. And so for me, watching him lean into investing in diverse communities and how when you do that, it elevates everybody, was a really good eye-opener about my responsibility to make sure I'm giving back and investing in these communities that are so important. With Marlon Brando, it was fun. I worked with him on his first commercial, and I realized the power of celebrity, because we were in a recording studio, and of course, when you imagine, Marlon Brando walking into a studio, everyone just kind of froze, and they were so in awe of him. And for Marlon, if you know Marlon, he's a straight shooter. He was just a down to earth guy. So I drove with him down there, and we were in the waiting room. And I said, Marlon, just wait here before we go in. Well, actually, we were in the car. And I said, wait here before we go in. I want to make sure that they're set up and they're ready for you, and you're not just hanging out in the lobby. And I did. And I saw, usually in a recording session for a voiceover, there's like the engineer, the producer, and maybe the copywriter. He had 20 people in there, and obviously all these people wanted to meet Marlon Brando. And I kind of was like, what the heck's going on? And I, talked to the head account person at the time, and I was like, look, he's here to work. This is not like, photo shoot opportunity for everyone. And so we cleared out the room a little bit, and I went back and I told Marlon, I said, look, there are a lot of people up there. It's you. And then he's like, okay, I got it. And we go in. It got quiet. No one said a word. I mean, it was just like amazing. And he walks in and he looks around, he pauses, and he's just turning, he's looking at everyone's like their mouths hanging open. And he sits down, and then he leans in and he says, does anyone have a deck of cards? And people were like, what? And they run it through the studio, they get him a deck of cards, and he starts shuffling and just talking, and he's like, pick a card. And he starts doing card tricks. And what I realized what he was doing, he was there to work, but he wanted everyone else to relax and to kind of get into the space of like, don't think of me as Marlon Brando, think of me as, and we knocked it out, and he was great. And so I realized the power of celebrity and how it can sometimes change people. But when you really talk to the celebrities, and I've been blessed to work with, quite a few, it's nice to get to know that human side of them and make sure that part is seen and not just what we see on the screen or see in a studio. So there were just very different things that we've...
That could not be more relevant to our lead human. But the power of celebrity leads me to ask you about the role of influence and influencers in particular, who are emerging as celebrities, and how you perceive that as part of the cultural zeitgeist today, and how you navigate and manage that within the agency.
It's a critical part for a lot of brands, in part because a generation, it's just not a younger generation. I'll be 65 this year, so I'm paying attention to
looking good. You're looking good.
Thank you.
There are.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm probably sleeping a lot more on the planes than I used to. But I think influence. Well, first of all, they are within a certain generation of people. They are celebrities. They bring a level of credibility to the brands that they represent, that they're talking about. They show the efficacy of it. And I think there are a lot of folks who get real interesting information from them. I think if I was an influencer, I'd be very careful in how many products I influence, because you don't want to be seen as a shill for everything. But we use them quite regularly and effectively. We never get an influencer who we're just hiring because they want to make the money. We're getting them because they really believe in the product. And we want that to come through. Michael Jackson was an influencer for Pepsi for years, for a younger generation. Magic Johnson was an influencer for, a number of, not just sports fans, but for a country that understood what he what he represented and wanted to be a part of that. So the idea of using influencers isn't new. It's maybe a different medium. We do it more digitally and socially than we have in the past. I mean, when I started this business, social media wasn't even, a thing. So, but I do think they're an effective, efficient way to connect with the very consumers that you want to support your brands.
And before Tim gets to a couple of his closing questions, when you and I spoke, it was in January, February of 2024, and you told me your New Year's resolution then for 2024 was service to your internal team and to younger people. So I'm wondering what your New Year's resolution was this year going into 2026.
Well, it's really interesting because, I usually start thinking about them the week I'm off on vacation from Christmas, right? Because that's when you get a little bit of downtime. And this year, my New Year's resolution is slightly different because, my mom just passed, and I realized
I'm sorry to hear
how much of my family I missed, and how not disconnected, how busy I was in my professional life and at the expense of family. And so part of my New Year's resolution this year, and we've already actually started, we've got a jump start on it. We're doing group family Zoom calls the first Sunday of every month, just so that we can stay connected. And I think that's so important because, one, it keeps you grounded. And I'm not the boss. I'm just one of the family members who's vulnerable, who's,
Can you switch? Can you make that switch to not being the boss?
I love it. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. Everyone looks at me like, oh my God, you're always, you're traveling here, traveling there. One of the great joys I have is being at home with my 3 dogs and laying on the couch and having, a cup of coffee or sometimes a glass of wine and just chilling out and doing absolutely nothing. You forget how important it is. And I think that's one of the things that does impact your work. You forget how important it is to take that time for yourself, to decompress, to reevaluate, to get surrounded by people who you love, but also people who will continue to challenge you to be better and to not get so sidetracked and things that, can get you off track a little bit. So that's one of the things that I'm probably going to do. And I know that's not necessarily the biggest business New Year's resolutions, but when I start a New Year's resolution, it's not about just doing it for the year. It's about you start it and then you hopefully continue to do it. Last year, one of the things as you mentioned, Jack, we wanted to invest in the team and spend more time developing and teaching, and we did that. We actually also did something really fun, and it was a function of me trying to help my mom understand how to use the computer. And I was like, we have all this great intelligence. Why don't we set up a class for our family members, our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers, and start teaching them basics? And we did it. It was great. It was a really cool way to kind of take our agency knowledge and our agency talent and get them thinking outside of just doing our regular kind of job. And it made us feel great in the process. And by the way, we opened it up to everybody. It wasn't just for people at the agency.
What a wonderful idea.
We started that new series, and we'll continue it next year. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of that. And I also sit on a lot of boards, AAF, the 4As, Tectonics Theater Project, the LINES Ballet, and Yanni, New York. And so I'm spending time kind of giving back and and of course HRC, and figuring out how I can be of service to these organizations that doing incredible work to support, kids, well, not just kids, but
Mhm.
to support the arts and to
Mhm.
support equity for everybody.
So yes, so two questions about that, and they're both about your breadth of experience. What are you learning being on these boards? What are the insights that you can give us that you've gotten? You're sharing a lot of yours, but what else are you learning?
Oh my gosh. Well, so for the LINES Ballet this year, I actually danced in the gala.
Oh, you're a dancer too. I didn't add
Oh,
that.
I'm not. That's the thing.
Oh, okay. More like me.
But one of the things that I learned was well, to be honest, what I did was I bid on a silent auction item, and the silent auction item was a walk-on part for the ballet for
Ah,
the gala. And during our board calls, so that was last year when I won the auction item, and this year at the gala was when the performance happened. But all last year, I'm talking smack on the board calls. They're like, "Oh, Aaron, we're excited you're going to be there." I was like, "Look, if I'm flying up to San Francisco for the ballet, I bet for this walk-on part, I better not just be entering stage left, giving someone a sword, and then exiting stage right. I want choreography. I want costumes." And Alliance Ballet is a beautiful, incredible, diverse um, company. I mean, they're just people from around the world, different ethnicities, different genders. I mean, it's just beautiful. And Alonzo King, who's the founder and the choreographer, believes everyone is a dancer and believes we all have it inside of ourselves.
oh boy.
And so he said, "Okay, Aaron wants to dance. We're gonna." And they sent me the video, and I was like, "Oh my God, what the hell did I get myself into? I'm going to do this." And I hired one of the women who works for me in our content division. She was a former dancer, and I was like, "Okay, for the next 5 months, you're going to teach me ballet 101." And we, 3 times a week, were doing what we did, and I did it. So I learned discipline, I learned focus, I learned about a different way of telling stories, which was really,
Oh,
that's a business that I'm in, obviously,
right.
trying to tell as many
Mhm.
innovative stories. Um, for Yanni, one of the things that I love, Yanni is the Young Audience of New York, and what we do with that organization is we provide funding. We have our own curriculum for kids who oftentimes are in schools where the arts programs have been taken away because of budget cuts. And so we go in and augment those programs with our own teachers, with our own, and oftentimes it's a lot of public schools because when the charter schools came up and the kids went to charter schools, the budgets changed. And so one of the things that I love and that I learn from these kids and watching them is the power that art has to transform lives,
Mhm.
and how it is not a nice to do, but a necessity, just like math and science. It opens the mind, it helps you gain confidence, it helps you understand literature. I mean, there are just so many things that great arts programs can do, and I'm really excited about what we do with Yanni. So those are some of the things that I've learned, obviously, with HRC, and they're really helping to make sure that we do everything that we can to, ensure equity for all. And that's the world that I want to live in,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm trying to do as much as I can.
Okay, so Aaron, final question. This has been
Okay.
great. This has been great. Thank you. And thank you for the
Oh,
stories as
my
well.
pleasure.
You have to, okay, don't say no to this, okay? Just say how. You have
Whenever
to
they
walk,
say don't say no, you know that you really should say no, but go ahead.
you have to walk into all these rooms that you're in internally with your teams and know more than everybody else who's sitting down around the table. I mean, you just have to. How do you, when you're in the middle of a meeting with a team and you're not necessarily totally agreeing with
Mhm.
where they're going, with what you know and what you bring to the table, how do you work with them to give them their space or push back, or like what are your secrets to kind of directing, because but they want to go in a different direction? How do you handle that?
Well, first, I would say that I don't believe that when I walk into the room that
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, but that's the truth. The truth is, I think curious people walk into a room wanting to learn and wanting to, it's not that I don't have an opinion. Trust me, I definitely have an opinion about things. But I think the best ideas have come. I may give a nugget and someone adds to that and brings something that I never even thought of. To me, that's the win, right? It's
Sure.
not about who comes up with the idea. It's
Totally.
about how the idea grows. So, and I'm not being humble about it. I really don't. I've had experiences. I've shared those experiences. I've hopefully helped people learn something, but the great goal is to give them a nugget and then watch them run and grow and do something that you could never have thought about doing on your own. Doesn't mean you're not part of the process. And we have, something that I learned from our Lexus client, which is this notion of Kaizen, and it's, constant improvement. And whenever we're doing something, whether it is an event or a new ad or a media buy, whatever it is, after it is completed, we have Kaizen sessions where everyone that was involved with it sits down and says, okay, what worked, what didn't work? It's not about pointing fingers. It's about really being honest and saying what worked, how can we make it better next time? And there were things that we've done that were huge that we still sit back and say, okay, if we ever have another opportunity to do X, Y, and Z, what can we do? What did we learn from the success in some of the challenges we had in the past, and how are we going to apply that to the future?
Aaron, when you and I spoke again 2 years ago, our closing comments were that we had to do this often, that we had such a great conversation. So I'm so pleased and honored, and Tim and I are so grateful that you're helping us here launch the Lead Human podcast on Acast. And so I will say it again, we need to do this often.
I agree with you. I'm honored that you've actually reached out and would consider me. And we met a while ago. I love the book. I love what you were doing. I love everything that you represent. It's part of my soul and part of what I believe. And I'll do anything to help evangelize that kind of philosophy. So I'm here whenever you need. Please call me again.
That is perfect. So let's thank the listeners. And if you felt or learned anything about leadership today, please share that and subscribe to us where you listen, and help us with Aaron now join this movement to lead human, because we know machines are important, but the real competitive advantage is always still going to be a human one. And this has been Lead Human.